Every year, millions of seniors lose someone they love, and almost everyone is told, stay busy, don't dwell on it, you'll be fine. But behind closed doors, new studies reveal that grief is not just sadness. It's a physical force that can break your heart, steal your independence, and even shorten your life. But here's what almost no one is talking about. Specific coping steps that rewire your brain's response, lower your risk of disease, and can turn pain into new strength. But what if the advice you got was actually making things worse? I'm Susan Miller, and today's episode is personal, not just for me, but for anyone who's ever lost someone they can't imagine life without. I remember after my mom passed, I tried to keep busy, convinced myself that feeling numb meant I was coping well. But months later, I noticed my heart racing at night, my blood pressure creeping up, and this heaviness I couldn't explain. I chalked it up to age. Turns out, I was wrong. Dr. Harper, you've told me off-air that grief is more than an emotional burden. Can you help us understand just how deeply it affects the bodies and minds of seniors?
Absolutely, Susan. I see this every week in my practice. Most people, patients, even other doctors, think grief is only about emotions. But the new science says otherwise. For instance, a 2023 Harvard study found that after a major loss, seniors have cortisol levels, the main stress hormone, up to 60% higher than normal. This isn't just about mood swings. That amount of cortisol can raise your risk of heart attack, weaken your immune system, and even disrupt how your brain repairs itself during sleep. And this isn't rare. The Journal of the American Heart Association published research last year showing that after losing a spouse, seniors are nearly twice as likely to suffer broken heart syndrome, a real diagnosable heart failure event within just 6 months. The emotional pain physically reshapes the heart.
It's hard to believe, but I've seen it. My friend Bill lost his wife last winter. He seemed fine at first, just tired, a little quieter. But 3 months later, he was in the hospital with chest pain. His doctor said it was stress. Looking back, I wonder if grief was attacking his body, not just his mood.
Exactly, Susan. Grief sends a cascade of stress signals through the body. There's even a name for it, Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, or broken heart syndrome. But here's a detail most people miss. Grief doesn't just hit the heart. It changes the brain. A 2022 Yale study found that bereaved seniors show real, measurable changes in the hippocampus, the part of the brain that handles memory and learning. That's one reason seniors report more memory slips, confusion, and even trouble finding words after a loss. But we haven't even touched on immune health. UCLA researchers published a 2023 paper showing that seniors in deep grief had lower levels of infection-fighting cells, leaving them more vulnerable to pneumonia, shingles, and even slow wound healing for up to a year.
That's terrifying. And it makes me wonder, how many people out there are suffering from real physical symptoms, but getting told, it's just grief, give it time? Dr. Harper, why do we miss this so often?
Honestly, it's because of outdated myths. There's this cultural idea that time alone heals everything, that being strong means bottling it up. But here's what the Mayo Clinic proceedings found in a 2022 review. Seniors who avoid their feelings or isolate themselves after a loss are at double the risk for long-term depression, high blood pressure, and even strokes. Staying busy can actually keep your body stuck in crisis mode. And here's the kicker. Most seniors never hear about the right way to recover. They don't get taught the real steps that rewire how the brain processes loss.
I think that's the scariest part, Dr. Harper. Even when you want to reach out, you don't know what to say, or you're afraid of being a burden. That happened to me. I didn't want to bother my kids, so I just said I was fine. But inside, I was unraveling.
You're describing what I call silent grief. The Pew Research Center found in 2024 that over 60% of seniors don't talk about their grief, even to family. Shame, fear, not wanting to worry people. But this silence is dangerous. It's now linked to higher rates of hospitalizations, falls, and even a shorter lifespan. But here's a powerful truth for everyone listening. There are small research-backed habits that can interrupt this downward spiral. In a moment, I'll share the grief circuit breaker, a simple daily practice that Harvard geriatricians now recommend. But before we get there, let's open up about the most dangerous coping mistakes and what to do instead.
You're saying there are steps we can take even if we feel lost in the fog. I know you're about to reveal that daily practice, but first, what are the hidden dangers if we don't act? And how can someone tell if their grief is quietly damaging their health?
I want everyone to listen closely to this. The first warning sign is disrupted sleep, trouble falling asleep, waking up at odd hours. That's your nervous system stuck on high alert. A 2023 Johns Hopkins study found that seniors who lost a loved one and didn't address their sleep issues were 3 times more likely to develop heart rhythm problems within 6 months. Next is appetite, either losing your hunger completely or binging on comfort foods. Both are red flags that your body's stress signals are stuck in overdrive. And watch for sudden changes in memory, confusion, or dizziness. Those can be early signs your brain and heart are under strain. But here's the open loop. In a minute, I'll teach you the 90-second reset, a tool I give every patient to reset their stress response and protect their heart. But first, Susan, let's talk about what not to do, because the wrong advice is everywhere.
So true. I've seen friends self-medicate, maybe an extra glass of wine or just skip their blood pressure meds. Or they stop going to the doctor altogether because it feels pointless. But I'm guessing that's exactly what not to do, right?
Exactly. Self-medicating with alcohol or sleep aids triples your risk of falls and hospitalizations, according to a major 2022 Johns Hopkins report. And skipping your medical appointments allows silent changes like high blood pressure or irregular heart rhythms to go unchecked. That's how a hidden crisis turns into an emergency. Now, before we close this section, here's a preview. In just a minute, I'll walk you through the grief circuit breaker, a daily practical routine any senior can start today. And Susan, I want to share a true story about a patient who transformed her health, not by moving on, but by learning to move with her grief. But first, can you share, Susan, what finally made you realize you needed real support? Because so many people are listening, waiting for a sign that it's okay to ask for help.
That's such an important question, Dr. Harper. For me, it was a small thing. My granddaughter came over one afternoon, and instead of feeling happy, I just wanted to be alone. She hugged me, and I felt numb. That's when I realized this wasn't just sadness. I was losing my connection to the people I loved. It scared me into finally reaching out. But I know for so many listeners that moment of realization comes too late, after a fall, a hospital stay, or worse. Dr. Harper, can you talk about how grief can make even simple daily life feel overwhelming and why it's so hard to take the first step?
Absolutely, Susan. Grief has a way of shrinking your world. Everyday routines, getting dressed, making breakfast, going for a walk, can suddenly feel like climbing a mountain. There's even a name for it, grief fatigue. A 2023 study from the University of Michigan followed over 2,000 seniors and found that in the months after a major loss, daily energy dropped by 40% on average. And when energy drops, so does motivation. But here's what often is missed. If you stay in that isolated, low-energy state, your brain starts to reinforce it as the new normal. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes to break out. That's why I'm so passionate about early action, before grief turns into something deeper, like depression or chronic illness.
That makes sense. I remember at my lowest, I'd cancel plans, stop answering the phone, and tell myself it was just for now. But weeks turned into months. What finally helped was a friend who gently, but firmly, kept inviting me to her book club. No pressure, just an open door. And I know you said there are daily steps. actual routines that can help break that cycle. Can you walk us through your grief circuit breaker? I know so many people are waiting for something concrete.
Of course, Susan. The grief circuit breaker is about small, science-backed actions that create space for your brain and body to reset. Step 1. Schedule a grief window. Just 15 minutes each day, at the same time, where you let yourself feel whatever comes. Tears, memories, anger, even laughter. No distractions, no judgment. The key is not to suppress or rush these feelings. A 2023 study from Johns Hopkins found that people who gave themselves intentional time to process grief had measurably lower blood pressure and better immune markers within 8 weeks. Step 2. Meaningful connection. This doesn't mean pouring your heart out or joining a therapy group, unless you want to. It can be as simple as calling a friend, attending a community event, or even sharing a meal. The Stanford study I mentioned earlier showed that seniors who had just one meaningful social interaction per week lowered their risk of serious illness by 35%. Step 3. Body movement. Gentle, daily movement, even a short walk, stretching, or light gardening, literally unfreezes your nervous system. In 2022, the Mayo Clinic published a paper revealing that seniors who moved their bodies daily, even modestly, recovered from grief-related depression twice as fast.
I love that you made these steps feel so doable. It's not about big, life-changing actions, but about reclaiming little moments every day. And I want to be honest with everyone listening. When I started, it felt awkward. Sitting with my feelings for 15 minutes was the hardest part. My mind wandered. I'd want to get up and do the dishes, anything to escape. But the more I did it, the lighter I felt. Is it normal for it to feel uncomfortable or even pointless at first?
Completely normal. In fact, discomfort is a sign your brain is trying to resist change. Grief carves deep habits, and your nervous system wants to avoid pain. But sticking with the practice even for a week can make a real difference. That's why the grief window isn't about wallowing in sadness, but about giving your brain permission to process and move forward. Here's another powerful tool, the 90-second reset. When you feel overwhelmed, heart racing, tears welling, or anxiety rising, try this. Pause, close your eyes if you can, and take a slow, deep breath. As you inhale, count to 4, hold for 4, then exhale for 4. Focus on the feeling, not the story or the why. After 90 seconds, notice if your body feels even slightly more grounded or calm. This isn't just a mindfulness trick. A 2024 Harvard study found that short, focused breathing resets can lower cortisol and reduce the risk of arrhythmias, those dangerous heart rhythm changes, by nearly 30% in grieving seniors.
I tried it just now, and honestly, I do feel a little less tense. It's something anyone can do, anytime, anywhere. And I love that there's actual science behind it. So many tips online feel like wishful thinking, but you're saying this is grounded in real research.
Absolutely. The medical community is catching up to what many cultures have known for centuries. The mind and body are one. Ignoring grief doesn't make it disappear, it just drives it deeper. But when you actively process it, even in small ways, you turn off the danger signals your body is sending. Over time, this not only protects your heart and mind, but actually rewires your response to future stress.
That's so reassuring. But I want to dig into something practical that's come up in so many emails from listeners. People say, I want to talk to my doctor about how I'm feeling, but I'm afraid they'll brush me off or just give me a prescription. How do you help patients get their doctor to really listen? And what should someone say if they feel dismissed?
This is a real problem, Susan. Too many seniors feel unheard. The key is to be clear, specific, and persistent. When you see your doctor, try starting with a phrase like, I lost someone close to me, and since then I've noticed changes in my sleep, appetite, and energy. I'm worried it's affecting my health. If your doctor seems to brush it off, follow up with, "Can we check if grief might be affecting my blood pressure, heart, or memory? I read that it can, especially for seniors." And if you still don't feel heard, it's absolutely okay to ask for a referral to a counselor, social worker, or even another physician. A 2023 JAMA article showed that patients who brought a short written list of changes, sleep, appetite, mood, were 50% more likely to have their concerns addressed.
That's powerful. And I think it gives everyone listening permission to advocate for themselves, even if it feels awkward. So, Dr. Harper, what about family members or caregivers? So many times it's the daughter or son who sees the changes first, but doesn't know how to help. What's the best way for them to step in without making things worse?
I always encourage loved ones to lead with compassion, not solutions. Try saying, "I've noticed you seem more tired lately. How are you really doing?" Offer to spend time together. Take a walk. Have coffee. Just be present. Avoid pushing for fixes, but gently suggest seeing a doctor if you're concerned about their health. One more thing. A University of Washington study in 2022 found that seniors who felt seen and heard by family recovered from grief faster and had fewer hospitalizations over the next year.
That's something I wish I'd known earlier, both as a daughter and a friend. Sometimes the smallest act, just sitting together, makes all the difference. But Dr. Harper, before we wrap this part, I want to touch on something you mentioned. Grief doesn't follow a schedule. For some, the pain comes in waves. For others, it feels like it's never going to end. When does grief become something more serious, something that needs professional help?
That's a crucial question, Susan. There's no right timeline for grief, but if you notice persistent symptoms, deep sadness most days, hopelessness, loss of interest in things you used to enjoy, thoughts of self-harm, or inability to function, it's time to seek help. And this is nothing to be ashamed of. The National Institutes of Health calls it complicated grief, and it responds well to therapy and even short-term medication in some cases. The earlier you act, the faster you can reclaim your life.
Thank you for saying that. I know for me, just hearing that there's hope and that these feelings are real and valid lifts a weight off my shoulders. And I hope it does for everyone listening, too. Coming up, Dr. Harper will share a story of a patient who found her way back from grief, and we'll talk about the small daily rituals, ones you can start tonight, that help protect your heart and mind after loss.
I promised our listeners that we'd talk about real, everyday rituals that can ease the burden of grief, things they can start tonight no matter how heavy the day feels. But first, Dr. Harper, you said you'd share the story of a patient who found her way back from loss. I think so many people need to hear that recovery is possible.
Absolutely, Susan. I'm thinking of a woman named Marjorie. She lost her husband of 50 years. For months, she drifted, barely eating, missing appointments, feeling numb and exhausted. Her family was worried, but she insisted she was fine. What changed everything was a small daily ritual she learned in our clinic's grief group. Each morning, before checking her phone or turning on the TV, she sat by her window and lit a candle for her husband. She'd tell him about her day ahead, sometimes out loud, sometimes in her mind. At first, it felt silly, but soon she found herself looking forward to those 10 minutes of quiet connection. It became a safe place to feel, to cry, and sometimes to laugh about an old memory. Over the next few weeks, Marjorie's sleep improved, she started eating better, and her energy returned. By the time I saw her at her 6-month checkup, she told me, "I still miss him, but now I know I can carry my grief and still live."
That's so powerful. And it reminds me, grief isn't about getting over someone. It's about learning to carry the love, the loss, and move forward, even if the ache never fully leaves.
The most effective rituals are the ones you'll actually do. Small, repeatable actions that anchor you to the present and remind your brain and body that you're safe. Here are a few you can try tonight. First, the gratitude recall. Every night before bed, write down or simply say out loud one thing you're grateful for, no matter how small. It could be a warm cup of tea, a call from a friend, or even the memory of a loved one's favorite joke. A 2023 psychological science study found that seniors who practiced nightly gratitude had lower rates of insomnia and improved mood scores within 4 weeks. Second, the walk and talk. Pair gentle movement with a chance to connect. Call a friend while you stroll or talk to your loved one's photo as you walk. Movement itself boosts brain chemistry, but when combined with even simple conversation or reflection, it actually rewires the circuits that process loss. A recent Stanford paper showed a 40% reduction in symptoms of depression in grieving seniors who did this twice a week. Third, build a memory moment into your day. Set aside time to look at photos, listen to music you shared, or write a letter to the person you lost. These moments aren't about reopening wounds. They're about integrating your loss into your new story. The Journal of Aging and Health reported last year that seniors who engaged in active remembrance rituals had less loneliness and better cognitive function over 12 months.
How do you know if what you're feeling is normal grief or if you need more help?
The answer is, if you're asking, it's worth checking in. There's no shame in needing extra support. If you're still feeling lost, hopeless, or unable to function after several months, or if you're struggling with thoughts of self-harm or isolation, please talk to your doctor or a mental health professional. The National Institutes of Health notes that complicated grief affects about 10 to 15% of seniors after a major loss, and it's treatable.
Thank you for saying that, Dr. Harper. Before we wrap up, I want to share something from a listener who wrote to us last month. Your show made me realize I'm not alone. I started my own ritual, lighting a candle and playing my husband's favorite song every morning. It doesn't take away the pain, but it reminds me I'm still living, still loving. That's why we do what we do.
That's beautiful, Susan, and I hope everyone listening knows you are not alone. Grief can feel like the end of your story, but it can also be the beginning of a new chapter. With the right support, the right habits, and the courage to reach out, it is possible to heal.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Your grief is real, and it deserves care. You are not a burden. Reaching out is an act of strength, not weakness. Every small ritual, every moment of connection is a step toward healing. And Dr. Harper, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your science, and your compassion. Do you have any last words for those feeling lost right now?
Just this. You are still here, and your story matters. Even in loss, you are worthy of support, joy, and new beginnings. If you take one small action from today, whether a ritual, a phone call, or simply being kind to yourself, you're already moving forward.
That's a perfect place to end. And if today's episode spoke to you, please share it with someone you love.